the sun called a solar storm. And there's a couple different ways these things can happen. One of them involves basically a magnetic field, and what ultimately happens is a whole burst of light can shoot out, causing some problems. The even bigger ones that are solar storms, what they can do is even more. In addition to a burst of light, they can send out this massive junk, basically sun plasma, which can affect a lot of things. What can it affect?
DNA that can go through the sun gets out of here, and the sun's about to burp, and anybody who's parasitic gets toasted when the sun burps.
Parasitic? What is parasitic?
Anybody whose DNA can't make bliss will experience heat when the sun has its orgasm. Well, they say 2012, I say before. Very little time. Very little time. Yes.
Unlocking. My understanding from the A's is that certain cosmic events are going to occur and or could be manipulated by benevolent extraterrestrials, where they apparently have some technology that would allow cellular memory to release within our body. And somehow that would create a reaction of total physical remembrance, not only for the body, but also for the mind and face.
I would agree with Hawkins and Jacobs about that. I think it's true. I mean, when I first started hearing about that, it hadn't happened to me, and I was very reticent about it because it seemed quite terrible. But I've met and talked face to face with people who have lived with this for years, and they're not lying. They're flat out not lying. We may not understand what that's really about, but it's very clear that what it looks like is they're being, that some kind of hybrids or something are being created by these people. That's what it looks like. Well, we're
The Starseeds.
I don't know what was going on. Maybe they, like, you know, did something to my parents so they couldn't actually hear me. I don't really know. But what I do know is after going like this, my hand, after about a minute of just going, no, go away, stop, my hand froze, my arm became paralyzed, my arm dropped down beside my body, my whole body felt paralyzed. And the next thing I remember, next thing I know, I am lying down on some kind of table. There are 4 ETs around me, looking down at me, and 2 of them had these little, like, proby things in their hands, and I was awake for about a minute, just thinking, like, oh my god, what is happening? And then I blacked out, and the next thing I know, I'm in my bed the next morning, and I remember, you know, when I came to the next morning, just jumping out of my bed, thinking, oh my god, what happened? What was that? Like, what did they do to me? You know, like, I was really, it was just, like, because it felt very real, and I looked at my body, I'm like, did they do anything to my body? And you know, I didn't have any marks anywhere, so, I mean, I don't know, there's a possibility that they implanted something in me, or they took some of me, like my DNA. I don't really know what their intentions were. I didn't get, when I was there, like, I was afraid, but I didn't feel like they really wanted to hurt me. I felt like maybe they were just very curious about me. That's the feeling that I got, but I was still afraid. And I told my mom what happened. I told my parents, and I think they were a little freaked out. I think they were, but, you know, I don't know, I guess a part of them at the time thought that I was still dreaming, you know. I had a nightmare. So anyway, that night, you know, same thing happened. I was in my bed, and same thing happened. I woke up. They were there. This time I was like, you know, really adamant, like, go away. What do you want? Just leave me alone. And same thing happened. My arm, it froze, fell down beside my body. I felt paralyzed. I could not move. The next thing I know, I'm on this table, and there are the 4 ETs around me. They're looking at me. And then I black out. I don't really remember much. I just remember that they're looking down at me, and I see that they have these little, like, appliances and stuff, and I know, you know, that it sounds kind of scary. It sounds kind of gross. Like, I don't really know what happened, you know. I don't. Like, who knows? Who knows, really? But that's what happened. That is my experience. And it only happened the 3 times. I only had 3 encounters with them. And, yeah, like, who knows? Maybe there's a possibility that at the time my pineal gland or my pineal gland, however you want to say it, you know, pronounce it, doesn't really matter, tomato, tomato. You know, the pineal gland in your brain, there's a chance that it was producing a lot of DMT, which was allowing me to just go into these other realms, these other dimensions, and see aliens and experience something like that. I mean, that is a possibility. I don't really know, but I
to something like this, unless people know what they're dealing with, they can get in a lot of trouble. And I backed off the thing, but not before the woman that was with me. I watched her all of a sudden she was befuddled, and she kind of looked at me like, why am I befuddled? And she was befuddled because that entity threw at her a force. I mean, look, I don't know how it operates, okay, but it threw something at her which clouded her mind. She was no longer able to speak. She was having a difficult time in speaking. And that's what it does. And that's, you know, and when you go back and you look at ancient manuscripts, this is all par for the course. This is how these fallen angels, or, you know, the good guys, whenever they appear, it's the same type of power which comes over people. The good guys will come over and touch you and tell you to, you know, okay, stand up, you're okay. Peace be with you, that type of thing. The bad guys thrive on the fear and will let you just wallow in it, which is what it's so parallels, in my opinion, the whole alien abduction phenomena. There's so many similarities there. You know, what are we really looking at? And in my opinion, we're looking at they're not extraterrestrial, they're interdimensional, i.e. fallen angels. And when you talk about that, you know, people, again, when was the last time we saw them? Well, we haven't seen them. All we can do is talk to, let's say, abductees, or go back into ancient manuscripts and look at some of the encounters that people come up with when these things happen. And they're, you know, with the good guys, good things happen. With the bad guys, it's nasty. Apparently there was some sort of a confrontation. There was some sort of a war between these beings. Sides were drawn up, and we're kind of like, we're almost like cannon fodder in a way. There's this unseen war which is happening in another dimension all around us that we don't see, because we're dull to it. And yet I believe that there are principalities and rulers in very, very dark places. One of them, if I can digress for a bit, came from Iraq, abducted. And what I find a dynamic in their consciousness, in their paradigm, in their worldview, which I find alarming, is they begin to lose the ability to discern right from wrong, good from evil. And so they say, well, these entities are just a higher form than ourselves, and so what is good and evil to us doesn't really apply to them. And yet we see that these entities go out of their way to create a climate of absolute terror and fear during the abduction phenomena. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, every abductee I've talked to talks about the same thing, how they hate it, they loathe it, they're terrified, petrified, and they're powerless to do anything about it. Well, many of them are powerless to do anything about it. There are those who have actually claimed to have stopped their abductions, and one of the guys that I've interviewed who came on the alien interviews, and his name is Joe Jordan. He's a MUFON investigator, and been in the field for quite a period of time. And actually, this year's Roswell conference, he had about 10 to 12 people come up on stage and talk about how they were able to stop their abductions.
What are you? What are you? Are you a starseed? Are you a star child? Are you a star child? Okay, what are the symptoms? Now, when I was younger, I felt like I didn't belong here. I felt like I want to go home. Do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel like you just want to go home? I had dreams when I was younger about these cat-like people. They look like cats. And
we all have this potential to channel source through our bodies and shine this light. Absolutely, but I feel that some of us in particular, we're here right now because we were sent on a mission. We're sent to help the people on this planet right now who so desperately need it. We're here to help wake people up, wake them out of their coma. That is you, and you're afraid of the rejection.
The Starseeds. The Starseeds. When they say the return of the gods, or the return of the enlightened ones, or the return of the luminous ones, well, actually they're talking about you and me, the Starseeds. So, we are the ones that nobody actually talks about. Everybody is so busy hunting prophecies. We are the ones that nobody actually talks about. Everybody is so busy hunting prophecies.
Are so beautiful, so angelic looking, and so incredibly evil. The way they handle you and the things that they do to you, it's like you can come across the reptilians, and these were all reptilians. These beings have evolved. They have changed physical containers. They no longer look reptilian. But when you have the ability to see properly, when you can see properly, you see through the facade, they are not what they seem. And they have this ability to connect with you mentally, telepathically. Telepathy is mental, right? The fourth dimension is the mental dimension. And what they do simultaneously is they have technology and they have the ability to stroke your central nervous system, giving you the sensation of euphoria. And there's channelers all around the world who have fallen victim to these beings. And it's happening. I see it everywhere. I've dealt with these beings time and time again.
Should learn to say that those entities have been always with us. It's just for us to rediscover them and to acknowledge that they have arrived in this moment of time, because 2012 is the great gathering of these energies. Yes. So they are surrounding the planet with these great energies. It's a galactic federation approach.
And it is a sphere, rose quartz. And what I did was that I remote viewed a big interstellar fleet out in the area of Orion. And as I saw it in my mind's eye, I began to tune consciousness and this sphere with my bioelectric field. And as I held it, I put my hand out and suddenly, zap, all these detectors started going off. And they went off for about 5 hours over the course of this past year. They're coming, my friends, and what they were saying is that we're coming, nothing's going to stop it.
There is an ideological war that is unfolding right now for the mind of this generation, and ladies and gentlemen, we get involved with this or we don't. And if we don't, we abdicate to those types of visionaries our future and the future of our
We're coming, my friends, and what they were saying is that we're coming, nothing's going to stop it.
All of this is for an agenda that is being kept essentially hidden from us. I look at this phenomenon with a certain amount of alarm. Other people feel that it's more benign than I might feel. But whatever it is being kept from us. I feel that if this were a phenomenon that were ultimately to help us, that we would probably know this and that the abductors would have made this clear, but this is not what has happened, actually. And so I'm really very, very disturbed about what I've seen.
that would allow cellular memory to release within our body. And somehow that would create a reaction of total physical remembrance, not only for the body, but also for the mind of this.
I would agree with Hawkins and Jacobs about that. I think it's true.
In effect,
DNA that can go through the sun gets out of here, and the sun's about to burp, and anybody who's parasitic gets toasted when the sun burps.
Parasitic? What is parasitic?
Anybody whose DNA can't make bliss will experience heat when the sun has its orgasm. Well, they say 2012, I say before. Very little time. Very little time. Yes.
Unlocking.
My understanding from the A's is that certain cosmic events are going to occur and or could be manipulated by benevolent extraterrestrials, where they apparently have some technology.
When I first started hearing about that, it hadn't happened to me, and I was very reticent about it because it seemed quite terrible. But I've met and talked face to face with people who have lived with this for years, and they're not lying. They're flat out not lying. We may not understand what that's really about, but it's very clear that what it looks like is they're being that some kind of hybrids or something are being created.
from the sun called a solar storm. And there's a couple different ways these things can happen. One of them involves basically a magnetic field, and what ultimately happens is a whole burst of light can shoot out, causing some problems. The even bigger ones that are solar storms, what they can do is even more. In addition to a burst of light, they can send out this massive junk, basically sun plasma, which can affect a lot of things. What can